Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving into Neil Gaiman's The Sandman.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Yep.
And we're going to be looking at it through this really cool academic analysis.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, it digs into all the themes of like change and transformation and adaptation.
Oh, interesting.
And what really got me is like how Gaiman uses all these different characters and settings to show just how inescapable change really is.
Right. Yeah, you can definitely see that throughout the series.
Yeah. And even like Morpheus, the main character.
Dream of the Endless.
Right, Dream of the Endless. He goes through this massive transformation himself, which when you think about it, it's kind of surprising, right? Because he starts out like so rigid and, rule-bound.
Yeah, he's very much a creature of habit and tradition at the beginning.
Right. So like how can someone like that even begin to change?
Well, that's what makes his arc so compelling, I think. I mean, it's almost paradoxical, right? That the embodiment of dreams, or a realm of infinite possibility, starts off as this staunch traditionalist. Yeah. But Gaiman uses that initial rigidity to really emphasize the power of change.
Okay.
Morpheus's journey isn't just personal growth. It's like this reflection of a fundamental truth about the universe itself.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The analysis also mentions Morpheus's destruction as like a key part of his transformation.
Yeah, right.
But how can being destroyed be seen as like a positive change?
Yeah, that's where things get really fascinating, I think. It's all about the metaphors at play here. His destruction isn't an ending, It's a rebirth.
Okay.
Like, think of it like a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly.
Oh, yeah.
Morpheus's sacrifice isn't just about him. It's necessary for the dreaming, and maybe even for, like, the balance of the cosmos.
Wow. So it's not even just about avoiding change. It's about understanding that it's like an essential part of existence.
Absolutely.
Even for these, like, super powerful beings like Morpheus.
That's woven into the fabric of reality.
Okay. Yeah. And there are these specific events in the series, too, that really drive this point home.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like his reconciliation with Nada or his acceptance of his role in like Orpheus's tragedy.
Yes.
These are like huge moments that really force him to confront his past and choose a different path.
Right. They're pivotal for his development.
And I don't know, have you ever experienced something like that made you completely rethink your perspective?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've all had those moments, right? Where you're confronted with like a difficult truth about yourself or, the world.
Yeah.
It can be tough, but those are often the experiences that we grow the most from.
Yeah, definitely. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about the dreaming itself.
Okay.
Because it's not just a setting, is it?
No, it's so much more than that.
Yeah, this analysis describes it as almost like a living being.
Right.
So how does the dreaming reflect this theme of change that we're talking about?
Well, one of the things that makes the Sandman so captivating is that the dreaming isn't static.
Okay.
It's a realm that constantly mirrors the changes in both Morpheus himself and like humanity's collective unconscious.
Okay.
So as our dreams and desires evolve, the dreaming evolves with them.
So it's like this visual representation of how fluid our imaginations can be.
Exactly.
So when the analysis talks about the dreaming like becoming all chaotic and fragmented.
Yes.
During Morpheus's imprisonment, is that like symbolic of something deeper?
Absolutely. It's a powerful metaphor for what happens when change is resisted.
Okay.
Think about it. When Morpheus is imprisoned, the dreaming, a place of infinite potential,
right,
it becomes like stagnant and lifeless.
Oh,
it's
really?
like this reflection of the fact that without change, even the most vibrant realms can kind of wither away.
But then when Daniel takes over
Yes.
as the new Dream Lord, the dreaming is revitalized. So that seems to represent like a new beginning.
Absolutely.
Made possible because of change.
Right. It highlights the idea that sometimes letting go of old structures, even if they seem fundamental, can lead to incredible renewal. And remember, this renewal isn't just happening to the dreaming. It's happening to Morpheus, too,
right,
as he transitions into this new form.
It makes you wonder if like our own dreams could reflect like our own personal growth and transformations, right?
Yeah.
Like, are they changing as we change? What are they trying to tell us about our journeys?
That's a great question. I think our dreams can definitely offer us a glimpse into our subconscious, reflecting our fears, our desires, and even our potential for growth.
Okay, so we've talked about how change impacts Morpheus and the dreaming.
Right.
But we can't forget about the humans who encounter the endless.
Oh, yeah.
So imagine meeting a being who embodies like a fundamental force of existence.
Right.
It's got to be life-altering.
I mean, I can only imagine these encounters really underscore the transformative power of connection.
Right.
For both the mortals and the endless.
Yeah.
They're often forced to confront change in these really unexpected ways.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about Hobgadling. He's granted immortality.
He is.
And lives for centuries.
Right.
That's a pretty unique perspective on having to adapt to like a constantly changing world.
You know, it really is. He witnesses empires rise and fall.
Right.
Technology evolve, social norms completely shift. I mean, his whole existence is a testament to this constant flow of change.
But does he ever like resist change after all? He's seen it all?
He does, at times.
Yeah.
You know, even someone who has experienced as much as Hob can still find himself clinging to the familiar.
Right.
But ultimately, he's a survivor.
Yeah.
You know, his ability to reinvent himself across centuries really speaks to the resilience needed to navigate an ever-changing world.
And then there's Letta Hall.
Oh, yes.
Her story is so powerful. She goes through this immense transformation after losing her husband.
Right.
And becoming a mother.
Yeah, and all while entangled with the dreaming.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Her story really shows how like grief and love and even our own choices can lead to some pretty profound personal evolution.
It's a reminder that even when faced with immense tragedy and the influence of these powerful forces, we still have the capacity to grow and change.
It's interesting, though. It's not just about individual transformation.
Right.
These stories connect to this bigger idea. It's like change has this ripple effect.
Exactly. It's not contained to just one person.
Yeah.
Change in one person or entity can cascade outwards, you know, impacting others and shaping the world itself.
Wow.
Think of it this way. The characters in the Sandman, they're not just individuals on their own journeys.
Right.
They're interconnected nodes in this vast web of change.
Yeah, so we talked about how change impacts Morpheus and the dreaming and the humans who encounter the endless. But there's one more major theme we need to address.
Okay.
The role of death.
Yes.
And this is where the Sandman flips the script on us, doesn't it?
It really does. Death isn't portrayed as this, you know, grim reaper figure, but as a compassionate guide. She represents change not as an ending, but as a natural part of life's cycle.
I love that. It challenges our usual view of death.
It does.
It's not something to be feared, but like a transition, a necessary step in the grand scheme of things. And this brings us back to Morpheus, doesn't it?
It does.
Because his death, although it seems tragic, it becomes this catalyst for the dreaming's rebirth under Daniel.
Exactly. It's another powerful example of how destruction can lead to new beginnings. It makes you think about those times when you've experienced loss or change in your own life.
Yeah.
Maybe those events, even though they were painful at the time, actually led to unexpected growth. Or like opened up these new possibilities you hadn't even imagined.
It's true. Sometimes the most profound transformations come from experiences we initially perceive as setbacks or losses.
Right.
It's like that old saying, out of the ashes a phoenix is born.
Powerful stuff. But, you know, as much as we might intellectually understand that change is necessary, it's not always easy to embrace, right?
There's a part of us that just wants to cling to what's familiar and resist the unknown.
I get that.
So what does the Sandman have to say about resisting change?
Oh, well, this series explores this tension brilliantly.
Okay.
You see characters wrestling with that urge to hold on to the past, even when it's not serving them anymore.
Right.
And Gaiman doesn't shy away from depicting the consequences of that resistance.
Like with the Corinthian?
Exactly.
That rogue nightmare who just refuses to play by the rules.
He seems to represent those dangers of unchecked defiance.
Yeah.
And like a refusal to evolve.
Right. And his refusal to adapt and fulfill his purpose ultimately leads to his downfall.
It does. It's stark warning about what can happen when we become so fixated on our own desires that we lose sight of the bigger picture.
Yeah. And then there's someone like Burgess.
Oh, yeah.
Who becomes so obsessed with power.
Right.
He ends up destroying himself.
Burgess is a classic example of how clinging to control can backfire. His desire for power blinds him to the need for balance and change.
Right.
And that ultimately leads to his demise.
And it's interesting because even Morpheus, the Lord of Dreams, struggles with resisting change too.
He does.
You know, he's so bound by duty and tradition.
Yeah, even when those things start to hold him back,
Yeah.
In a way, his journey is about learning to relinquish control.
Oh.
He has to let go of that rigid adherence to the rules and his fear of vulnerability to truly evolve.
So it's not just about accepting change intellectually.
Right.
It's about, like, surrendering to the process.
Absolutely.
Even when it's uncomfortable or uncertain.
It is. It's recognizing that change is this inherent part of life, and resisting it ultimately hinders our growth.
It's like trying to hold back the tide.
Exactly. You said it. It's futile and exhausting.
Yeah, and it makes me think about all those times where I dug my heels in, refused to adapt, and ended up feeling stuck. Yeah. What could have been different if I had embraced the change instead of fighting it?
That's a question worth pondering, I think. It's in those moments of resistance that we have this opportunity to really examine our motivations.
Yeah.
And ask ourselves, what am I afraid of? What might I gain by letting go?
I think that's one of the things that makes the Sandman so powerful. It's not just this fantastical story.
Right.
It's a reflection of the human experience.
Yes.
We all struggle with change. We all have those moments where we'd rather things just stayed the same.
Absolutely. And while we might not be lords of dreams or, immortal beings, the challenges that these characters face, they really resonate with our own lives.
Yeah.
We see ourselves in their struggles and their triumphs and their transformations.
So if we're not lords of dreams, how can we apply these ideas about change to our own lives? Like, where do we even begin?
Well, I think it starts with awareness. Pay attention to those areas in your life where you might be resisting change. Are you holding on to outdated beliefs? Are you afraid to step outside your comfort zone? It's a good place to start. And once you've kind of identified those areas, what then?
Yeah, like how do we actually move through that resistance?
Yeah.
And like embrace the change?
Yeah, it's different for everyone, but sometimes it's as simple as asking yourself, what's the worst that could happen if I just let go?
Right.
Often the fear that we have around change is way bigger than like the actual consequences.
That's true. It's so easy to get caught up in the what ifs.
Right.
And, just let our imaginations run wild.
Absolutely. And sometimes it takes a conscious effort to reframe our perspective instead of seeing change as a threat.
Yeah.
What if we saw it as an opportunity?
Okay.
Like an opportunity for growth, for new beginnings.
So it's like that idea we were talking about earlier, right? Like destruction kind of paving the way for creation.
Exactly.
Maybe change isn't about losing something.
Right.
Maybe it's about making space for something new.
Absolutely. And this kind of ties back to that whole concept of the collective unconscious that we touched on earlier.
Right.
If the dreaming is shaped by like the thoughts and dreams and desires of humanity, then wouldn't it follow that our own individual transformations are contributing to like the evolution of that realm?
Wow. So even like our small personal changes, they can have like a ripple effect on a larger scale.
I think so, yeah. Absolutely. Every time you choose courage over fear,
right?
Every time you challenge an old belief, every time you prioritize growth over stagnation, you're contributing to this collective shift in consciousness.
Okay. That's both empowering and a little daunting.
It is.
Oh. It means that we're not just these passive participants in this whole like cosmic dance of change.
Right.
We have an active role to play.
Exactly. And that's what makes the Sandman so thought-provoking.
Yeah.
It reminds us that change isn't just something that happens to us. It's something that we participate in. Something that we shape.
Okay, so we've talked about how change is unavoidable.
Right.
And how it impacts individuals and entire realms, and how we can even find opportunities for growth within it.
Right.
So what are some of the key takeaways here that we can apply to our own lives? What does the Sandman ultimately teach us about navigating change?
Well, I think one of the most important takeaways is that change is just an inherent part of existence.
Yeah.
It's unavoidable. And resisting it often leads to negative outcomes.
Right, like we saw with the Corinthians.
Exactly. Yeah. Their unwillingness to adapt ultimately led to their downfall.
Yeah. On the other hand, the series shows us that embracing change even when it's difficult or painful, can lead to incredible growth and renewal.
Absolutely.
Look at Morpheus.
Right.
He goes from this rigid, isolated figure to someone who is capable of compassion and change and even sacrifice.
Exactly.
So it's not about liking change.
Right.
It's about recognizing its necessity and finding ways to adapt and evolve with it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And while we might not have the powers of the endless,
Right.
we all possess the ability to shape our own destinies through the choices we make in the face of change.
It's almost like saying that change is like this superpower we all have. It's how we adapt, learn, and ultimately create something new.
That's a great way to put it. And it brings us back to that idea of the dreaming, reflecting humanity's collective unconscious.
Right.
If change is this creative force, then our individual transformations contribute to the evolution of the world around us.
Wow. So even small personal changes.
Absolutely. Every act of courage, every time we challenge an old belief, every time we choose growth over stagnation,
Right.
we contribute to that collective shift in consciousness.
That's both empowering and a little daunting, isn't it?
It is. It really is. But it also highlights the interconnectedness of all things. We're not just these isolated beings going through these transformations alone. Right. We're part of a larger web. And our choices have an impact, however small, on the world around us.
So the next time I'm facing a tough decision or feeling like the resistance to change creeping in, I'll remember that.
Good.
It's not just about me. It's about that ripple effect, the contribution I'm making to the larger story.
Exactly. And that's a powerful thought to carry with you.
Yeah.
It reminds us that even in the face of uncertainty or fear, we have the power to choose growth, to embrace that transformative journey, and to play our part in shaping a world that reflects our highest potential.
This has been a truly mind-bending deep dive.
It has, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've journeyed through the dreaming, explored the nature of change, and even uncovered some hidden superpowers we all have.
Yeah.
What a ride.
It's been fascinating. And as we wrap up, I'm left with one final thought.
Okay.
If the dreaming truly is shaped by humanity's collective unconscious, how can we consciously use our understanding of change to influence its evolution? How can we individually and collectively contribute to a dreaming and maybe even a world that reflect our highest potential?
That's a powerful question to ponder.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Sandman.
It was my pleasure.
And the transformative power of change.
Yeah.
Till next time, keep dreaming, keep thinking.
Yes.
And keep weaving your own unique thread into the tapestry of existence.
Yeah, it really is incredible to think about, even small personal changes. They can have this ripple effect on something as vast as the dreaming.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really makes you think about, those everyday choices. The ones that might seem kind of insignificant at the time,
Right.
What if they're actually contributing to something much bigger than we realize?
That's the power of that connection Gaiman makes between the dreaming and the collective unconscious.
Right.
It suggests that our transformations aren't just these isolated incidents.
Right.
They're these threads woven into this larger tapestry,
Yeah.
influencing and shaping the fabric of the dreaming itself.
So each time we face a fear or embrace a new idea or choose to grow instead of staying stuck,
Yes.
we're adding a new thread to this tapestry.
You got it. And just like a single thread can change the entire pattern of a tapestry,
Right.
our individual transformations can contribute to the evolution of the dreaming.
It's a pretty cool concept.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, that we as humans have this power to shape dreams.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It is. It makes you wonder, what kind of tapestry are we creating right now?
Yeah.
What does the dreaming's current state say about us? About our collective consciousness?
That's a good question. It's definitely worth thinking about. If the dreaming reflects humanity's hopes and fears and dreams, then looking at its current state might give us some insights into our collective psyche.
So maybe by exploring the dreaming, even if it's through fiction, we can get some clues about how we're dealing with this whole, dance with change.
Exactly. It's like Gaiman is giving us this mirror.
A way to look at how we deal with transformation, both personally and collectively.
This has been a really thought-provoking deep dive.
It has.
We explored the Sandman through this great analysis.
Yeah.
Delved into what change really is. And even found this hidden superpower we all share. Well, as we wrap up, I'm left with this thought.
Okay.
If the dreaming is shaped by humanity's collective unconscious,
Right.
how can we use our understanding of change to affect how it evolves?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah. How can we each contribute to a dreaming and maybe even a world that represents our best selves?
I think that's something we all need to think about.
It is. This has been an incredible journey. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the Sandman.
It was my pleasure.
And the transformative power of change.
Until next time.
Until next time. Keep dreaming, keep thinking, and keep making your own unique mark on the world.